between generating leads for mortgage or real estate on Facebook in comparison to Google. These two platforms are very different. And I think a lot of non-technical people don't really even realize that. The way they function, the kind of use case, the algorithms, everything's very different. So I'll start off by talking to you about Google so you understand how Google works, right? So Google Ads, other than YouTube, is just, it's basically keyword based. That's pretty much how that works, right? So when somebody search, the ad comes up. If you've never seen a Google ad, I can guarantee you just search for anything, would try something related to diet or mortgage, and you'll see probably 2 or 3 results at the top that say ad. And that's what a Google ad looks like. So they're really just seeing these at the top of the search thing. One of the biggest differences between Google and Facebook is that Google, you have to wait for somebody to search, right? You have to wait for them. Facebook is completely different in that regard, in that probably very few, maybe 1% less, actually search inside of Facebook and will find your ads, right? So Facebook allows us to do what Google cannot do. Google, we're waiting. Facebook, we're proactive, right? So Facebook has all this amazing data about what somebody's done. Maybe they visited Zillow, or they went to a realtor's open house, or all kinds of stuff like that. Maybe they talked about real estate, and all of a sudden they fall into this audience, and that's who we show our ads to, right? Google, you're waiting. Facebook, you're proactive. Now, there's another really big difference between Facebook and Google too. And Google, the reason why it's typically way more expensive, and usually a lot more expensive cost per funded deal, is because it is not an equal playing field. Facebook is, and I'll explain that. So Google, you're basically up against your other competitors. If you're in a market, which if you're in a major metropolitan market, I can guarantee you your big guys like the Quickens and the Rockets and all those places, they're spending crazy amounts of money to keep their ads at the top. And so what that means is that you really almost never get an opportunity to get into the ad area. And if you want to be shown as an ad, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. So it's always like a commodity type situation, right? The higher your competitors are paying, the more you're going to have to do the same thing. Facebook is completely different than that. It's actually an equal playing field for all advertisers, or at least it is initially. Where you gain your advantage with Facebook is by actually creating better ads that people engage with and like. So Facebook is looking to give you cheaper cost per leads, cheaper impressions if you can create engaging ads. And that's where, working with an agency like us who's generated well over 1 million leads, we know what to do. We know how to make that happen. And that's why we can produce lead costs that are in most cases significantly cheaper than Google's. And also, a cost per funding that's also lower than Google's in most cases. So the only other thing I would say about the two differences is with Google, a lot of times what you're going to find are people, if you are doing Google ads and you get a lead right then, is that they're probably a little bit closer to the process, to like buying a home, for instance, right? So your potential to close that lead is probably a little bit quicker. However, you have a couple of problems with that. One is in most cases, they have a realtor already. Ask anybody who's done Google ads, they'll tell you that they very rarely find a lead that's good that also doesn't have a realtor, as opposed to our strategies on Facebook. A lot of times we're catching them early enough in the process that they don't have a realtor yet. So this is great for co-marketing or for trading deals with realtors, which we talk about a lot in our other videos. And then the other thing about Google is that most people do more than one search. Actually, the average is about 3 searches. So there's a very high likelihood that the lead you generate is actually going to go and search more and become a lead somewhere else. So you're competing with other people. On Facebook, that likelihood is much less. So those are the main things to think about when you're looking at Google. So what I would tell you is that as long as you understand that the window to closing most deals on Facebook, other than refi leads, purchase deals, I should say, is going to probably be a little bit longer, a couple more months longer than Google. The fact is, it can be really advantageous just because your cost per funding is a lot lower and your cost per leads a lot lower. And you can take advantage of the thing that I mentioned before, which is if you know how to create great ads or use an agency that does, then you can reduce those costs and increase your results even further. And you're not tied to a lot of competitive marketplace like you are on Google, where you just have to keep paying more and more and more and more to get your ads shown, because Quickens in your market advertising as well. So hopefully that makes sense.